Miami Beat, your source for all things entertainment, where we bring you the pulse of Miami's vibrant music and cultural scene. From the salty rhythms of Southside merengue to the energetic beats of popular music, we've got it all covered. Join us as we take you on a journey through the city's hottest clubs, festivals, events, and introduce you to the talented artists and performers who make Miami the cultural capital of the South. So sit back and relax with the Miami Beat. Now, here's your host, Renee Gill.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Miami Beat. We're happy to report to you from right here from CNN Studios in South Miami. And I have a great guest today, and I think you're going to enjoy it tremendously. I'd like to introduce our guest for this week today, DJ Alex Gutierrez. Alex, welcome on our show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Renee. It's a great honor and pleasure to be able to share some stories with you today.
It's great to have you here, Alex, because you are truly a legend in this community as far as the entertainment industry is concerned, as far as the music industry is concerned. So you have such a long trajectory in doing this. But first and foremost, I want to let everybody know that you're a veteran. You were in the Navy since, 18 years old?
At 18 years old, I volunteered to go in the Navy, and my father had to sign for me because I was actually 17 when I got the crazy idea to go in.
Can you put Alex's picture up, Julian, please, so that everybody can see what Alex looked like back in the days when he was in the Navy?
Yeah, that's right.
There he is.
Yeah, I added the disco ball in the back.
Oh. No, but that's a phenomenal picture, and it's wonderful. Thank you for your service. So, how many years did you do? Were you in the Navy?
I did 8 years. About 8 years in the Navy.
Phenomenal. And so, let's talk about your musical entertainment DJ career a little bit. When did you start that?
In 1976, I walked into a party. I was 15 years old then. I walked into a party, and there was a guy in the back playing records to a bunch of kids dancing, and there was a bunch of girls looking at him. And I said, I want to do what that guy does. And I fell in love with the music first, then the girls, because I wanted to do that. And of course, at that time, as a Cuban immigrant, if you want to call us that, my parents didn't have a lot of money. We were just struggling, and everything was a burden. So imagine the finding equipment, finding turntables, buying records. That was all a cost that really wasn't budgeted into our household thing. So we had the family all got together and say, you want to do this for real? I said, yeah. He goes, you better do it because we're spending all this money. So they bought me some very rudimentary type of equipment like a guitar speaker and a mixer very similar to this one here that I brought today. It was the lesser model of this. It's a Radio Shack mixer back in the day. And
Radio Shack, wow.
Yeah.
That really takes me back.
Exactly.
Radio Shack hasn't been around for a while.
For a long time. And I started doing parties for $10, $5, things like that. And it was just, it was fun. And I started getting into the music, learning about every artist and everything that was coming out. And at that time, 1976, it wasn't full-fledged disco yet, which was what I liked. It was a lot of Philly soul, a lot of the black R&B stuff of the time, and it was really fun. And from there, the fever just got hotter and hotter, and I just continued doing it. And in the 80s, I started getting into nightclubs. Well, even when I was in the Navy, I was doing nightclubs in San Diego and Maryland, places where I'd get stationed at. I'd always find a little DJ gig to do.
That's phenomenal. And those were the days when we still had the 45 RPM records, correct?
Yeah, 45s.
We didn't have the LPs.
Not yet. We had LPs, but the 45s were cheaper. They were like 60 cents, so I could afford those more.
60 cents for
60 cents, 50 cents, exactly.
Wow.
And in 1976, one of the first commercial 12 inches, which was a DJ, I brought one here. It was the DJ versions of songs, if you can see here.
Take a look at that, Alex. Take it out so that the audience can see it. That looks it's quite unique.
They always used to print these things up as a gimmick so that you'd buy them. But the first one in 1976 was a song called 10% by a group
that it just became a hit. And it was the first time, because all the 45 records would only last 2 minutes, 3 minutes at the most, top. That was big. All of a sudden, a guy named Tom Moulton got the idea of making one song long, so you could play that song and you didn't have to, because normally you would buy 2 copies of the 45 and then mix them back and forth to make it longer, because people liked the song, but 2 minutes later, it was over. Oh. But yeah, there was a lot of record stores back then, ERE Records on 57th Avenue and 7th Street, and that's where I mainly got all my records there.
Phenomenal. And so when did you transition from the 40? What happened from, it went from 45 RPMs to what, CDs or cassettes or 8
No, the
tracks,
45 RPMs, we had albums, of course, but they were more expensive. As always, cost was a big deal back then. So we had a lot of 45s, and then the 12 inches started coming around, and they were probably anywhere from $1.99 to $2.49. So we started buying a lot of the 12 inches. And the record thing lasted for a while until we got... later on, we got into, we always had cassettes and we had 8 tracks, but really no one really played with cassettes or 8 tracks as far as DJing with them. The CDs came much, much later, and then all of a sudden, by that time, of course, we had regular jobs and stuff, and we could afford them.
That's true. Well, talk about regular jobs. Talk a little bit about your career. You work at the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, which is the #1 rated eye institute in the world for the last 20 plus years. And, what do you do there?
I've been at Bascom Palmer for around 35 years.
Wow.
In the Navy, I was a paramedic, and then as a paramedic, we went into a specialized school, which was I was called an ophthalmology technician. And then from there, I became a specialist in basically doing and probing the cornea, which is what I do now. We do a lot of testing on the cornea, cell counts, and we look in the eye, and we take measurements of the cornea before surgery, before LASIK, all that type of stuff. And, you know, that's what I do. Like they said, keep your day job, because, yeah, there's a lot of highs and lows in this music business. 1 minute you're up here, and then for 3 months you have nothing. So you always have your day job. There's very few guys out there that can live off of DJing. It's a hard job. Yeah. But
you've made a tremendous career out of it. You have done a tremendous job.
Right. It's just, I don't know. I guess I always stuck with the most responsible job, which was the Bascom Palmer, but always looking for DJ stuff. And now, at my present age, I'm able to basically invent nights, and I cater to people that are my age, because there's a lot of places that if you're a young person, you can go out anywhere in Miami, but if you're an older person, you're very limited. So you want to go to a nice place where you have a nice environment and are able to enjoy yourself with the music you love from back then.
So let's talk about the early days. You were born in Cuba, and you came here in what year?
I was born in Cuba. I came here in 1965. I was 4 years old. Went to school here. I went to South Miami High School, and I went to Shenandoah Elementary, where they put all the Cubans. I didn't go to Miami High, though. That sort of takes a little bit off my Cuban card. They knock out a couple of points there. But I went to Shenandoah, then I went to Coral Terrace, which is, we moved to Westchester. We were moving on up there. And then I went to South Miami. And that's basically, I came here not knowing a word of English. We had to learn English from the Archies and Scooby-Doo on Saturday mornings.
So what prompted you, what made you gravitate towards music? Was this something that was in your DNA from the early days from Cuba, or was this something that you just learned?
My parents weren't musically inclined, and none of my family was musically inclined. I did have a little drum set that they gave me, which may have sparked something in me. For one Christmas, I think when I was like maybe 6 years old, I got one of those fake drum sets, and I started beating on them. And if you want to call that the start of my interest in music, but the start of my interest in music was really in junior high school, which is I took band. I learned how to play drums then officially, and there was just a lot of things going on musically. Everybody wanted to do little bands. And then back in 1976, 75, there's a lot of these things called the open houses, which were parties here in Miami where all ages, it's an all-age group, can go. And I started going to those and seeing bands and saying, oh, I want to do, I was liking music a lot.
Talk about the open house, because that was a very, very interesting concept that meld together, not only the Hispanic community, but also the local American community. How did that come about? Who was the creator of that?
The open houses were created, I think, by one gentleman, which his name escapes me, but he basically took local bands and started giving the equivalent of high school dances, but with people that actually went to the high school. These were all kids that were 16, 17, had groups like Mantrap, Heaven, we had Coke, Opus, all sorts of names back then. A lot of them, we had the Antiques, of course. A lot of them were rock influenced. They were probably maybe 4 years older than I am, 5 years older than I am. And there was a lot of rock influence. So you'd go to see one of these guys or one of these bands at an open house, and they'd play a lot of rock type of songs, but danceable rock songs.
Was there any mixture between, say, Latin salsa music and rock during those open houses, or it was just strictly...
Of course, Santana, the group Santana, joined what is contemporary music with the Latin flavors. So a lot of these bands did a lot of Santana music. But little by little, as the time went by, they were influenced by a lot of the black bands, Ohio Players, Earth, Wind & Fire, the Barkays, all sorts of... So you started getting a little bit of the funk and the rock all mixed together. And it was the only places we could go, and it was cheap. It was $3, which was not cheap at the time, but $3 to get in, and you'd have a couple hours of dancing and seeing that girl you like from fifth period in the corner there and looking at her all night because you didn't have the guts to ask her to dance.
I remember back in the day there was the War Memorial Auditorium in North Miami where a lot of these dances were held, and there was a tremendous amount of mixture of people that would come there, or even people that would come down from Fort Lauderdale just to be there. Because this is when the big horn sounds started coming about, like Chicago.
Correct. And Earth, Wind & Fire.
And Earth, Wind & Fire.
And a lot of the black groups at that time also incorporated, had mass production. You had Barkays with Holy Ghost and all sorts of Brick and all these different groups of back then. Everybody was incorporating the big horn sounds.
So you started DJing. You started DJing at... various clubs, dance parties on the weekends or at nights. Then somehow you got into the radio business. How did that come about? How did you get hired as a DJ at a radio station?
In the early '90s, I was at a club, and one of the radio programmers, the program director, happened to be there, and he said, "I want you to do that on the station." And
live on the station.
Live on the station. And his name was Jesus Salas. He's very, very popular in the radio business. And I was hanging around people with like Raymond Hernandez, who was known as the Chief, and he was doing some stuff on Rhythm 98. And they took me over to El Sol 95, and we were probably me, Raymond, and... another guy named Gil were probably the first three guys to actually mix salsa. It was a Latin radio station. So we had a mix show where we would do salsa and merengue, and we would mix it up, and it was successful. And then that transferred over to the nightclubs because they could sell that concept, and they'd take us to all the local Latin nightclubs, and we'd mix live from there on the radio as part of a sales package. And then little by little, we just, radio stations, they come and go. Sol 95 is still around, of course. Sure. But then they had Salsa 98.3, which I was also a part of with Leo Vela was the program director, and Raymond Hernandez, again, the assistant program director. I worked with Maria Cristina at Super Q, which was a legendary, pivotal station here in Miami.
God bless her. Maria Cristina's still around, and she still has a Super Q radio station.
Online, that's right. You can listen to it online.
And it brings back those wonderful memories of all that fabulous music that they used to play on Super Q back in the day.
That was the station that most kids in their teens were hearing at that time. It was a beautiful time.
It was the true iconic radio station
exactly
for the South Florida community.
For sure.
So other than El Sol and you also performed at Clásica and
I did
La Calle?
a mix show, Clásica 92.3 con Susi Lemán, which we used to do mixes at in the afternoon. La Calle, after Salsa 98 kind of fizzled away or stopped existing, they turned it into La Calle, which was when reggaeton started coming in, early reggaeton. Not one of my favorite genres, but
I was going to ask you about that because there was such a drastic transition from from the classical music that you were playing at that time, mostly pop and salsa, hip hop.
the sophisticated sounds of salsa. You saw all the salsa artists were always in a suit. Celia Cruz and all the ladies were always dressed up. Gilberto Santa Rosa, all these people. It was a very refined place. Even if you go back to the Fania All Stars with Hector Lavoe and Willie Colon, all these guys would come out all dressed. All of a sudden, because of the popularity, I guess, of hip hop, and maybe a sort of a need for the Latin youth to have a music to call their own, maybe reggaeton was born. I mean, I'm not too much on the history of reggaeton, but it definitely gave it an urban feel and took away all the gloss and glitter that our generation had worked to look good, and now all of a sudden we were, hip hop in Spanish, I guess.
One of the things that really impresses me about you is your ability to be able to mix all types of music. So you can go from, the traditional, say, R&B or freestyle, something like that. All of a sudden somebody comes up and asks you, can you play a hip-hop song? And you do it. You mix that really well. You intertwine that. How do you do that? Is that training or is that just an ear?
It's studying. Like any profession, a profession evolves. And if you're not on it, I mean, I don't particularly like to listen to hip-hop in my car. But if I'm going to go to a place that I know that someone is going to ask for it, I'm going to try to brush up on it, and I have some good friends that are into that, Leo Perez,
right.
Things like that I can always call up and say, what's going on? And then I'll go and I'll do some research myself. You can't show up blind because then you won't look good in front of people. Yeah.
Exactly. You are also the founder, creator, and the executive director of the South Florida DJ Association. Talk about that. How did that come to be?
DJs in Miami have always butted heads. They've never really gotten along. If you're a DJ here and there's a DJ there, you kind of dislike each other for no apparent reason, just because you're a DJ and I'm a DJ and I want your job. And
was it from the competitive standpoint? Is that what it was?
From a competitive standpoint, yeah. But it turns personal once in a while, so it gets a little ugly. So I thought, why not start something called the South Florida DJ Association, an association that would try to bring DJs together, have them meet each other, and say, yeah, I guess you're not that bad. You're not that bad of a guy, because basically they were hating each other from afar. But when you get together, and we had meetings, and I had a lot of help from Leo Perez, George Santana. We got hundreds of DJs together to start talking to each other, and they formed a network, like realtors or like lawyers have the bar and things like that. All of a sudden, DJs were starting to talk to each other, and instead of trying to take away each other's jobs, they would respect each other's jobs. A lot of guys bought into it. It still exists, and the Facebook page, South Florida DJ Association, exists. A lot of guys go on there. You have a problem, you're at a party, you have a problem with a piece of equipment, you type something in there, and your question will be answered probably in 10 minutes. And it was pretty successful. I mean, a lot of guys didn't buy into it, but most people did. And it was
How many years has South Florida DJ Association been around?
I would say about 12 years now, 13 years now. And Leo keeps it alive. Leo is a guy that's on there always posting stuff. And
he's the driving force.
He is the driving force.
Behind the scenes of what's going on.
When everybody just kind of goes like this, Leo does something and everybody, hey, they're back on board.
Yeah.
And he has a radio station also on there that he runs. Mm-hmm. And
he puts a lot of great mixed music on there.
A lot of effort goes into it. He does the work.
So how many members in the South Florida DJ Association? I understand it grew from maybe half a dozen guys to what? How many now?
We have about 3,000.
3,000.
3,000 members in the South Florida area. We have a chapter in Chicago that has maybe about 500 or 600 people. We have Central Florida. I think even one guy went to Las Vegas and started the Las Vegas DJ Association, but with our logo, so it fits in with us. So it's nice. I mean, like I said, it hasn't really panned out into this where we have conventions every year or something like that. But it's good we communicate with the guys.
Is that something that may be in the future? Have conventions?
Everything
meetings?
in this business, you got to keep doing this, and see what kind of hits. This has been it's been decent. A lot of the guys have a good response. We communicate back and forth, but nothing that is blowing up or anything like that.
One thing that impresses me is that I see these DJs that you have presented them with a certificate that says, member of South Florida DJ Association, and they display that proudly. This is something that they're very proud to.
It's happening a lot now with the new generation of DJs that are coming from Cuba, that are here from maybe in the last 10 years. The mentality is a little different. They come with, again, con el cuchillo en la boca, like they say, with the knife in your mouth, ready to go up against everybody.
Go out and fight.
But we have to, we take them in and we basically assimilate them into what is South Florida DJing etiquette or style, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the guys are very receptive. And it helps. We have a gentleman by the name of DJ Fila who is doing what we're doing in the, I guess, English-speaking market, because we all speak Spanish, but the English-speaking, he's trying to unite DJs that have recently come from Cuba. And he's arranged a certain couple of things in Cuba with that moniker, but it's hard. It's hard to get DJs together. They're a strange breed.
Something that really impressed me about South Florida DJ Association is the fact that you communicate with them constantly, and you're always telling them, don't show up for a gig and don't just go there, wearing, jeans and flip-flops or something like that. They go there dressed up really nicely, and so the dress code, even to the point of emphasizing what a good dress code is when you go to a gig and you're going to perform. That has been part of the core of your existence, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys there with experience. Everyone in the South Florida DJs Association has either club experience or has wedding experience. I mean, back in the day, I used to do a wedding. They used to say, hey, I want you to show up at my party and do a wedding, or at my party and play music. That's it. I wouldn't talk to them until the day came. I showed up, played music. Nobody would bother me. Today, you have these guys. They have to coordinate what time people eat, what time they come in, what time this. They have a playlist to set. They have an introductions to make. All sorts of. It's a different breed out there, and a lot of these guys are really experts, and they help other guys that are trying to get into it. I mean, no one says, I'm not going to tell you this. Everybody shares their trade secrets.
I, about 2 years ago, had an experience with DJ Leo. Was very kind to help out, a local young man, African-American local guy that wanted to get into, the overall casino and
I remember that guy.
Yeah, and he had some phenomenal tropical music, Caribbean music, which Leo did not have. So Leo was kind enough to share some of his music, and he was kind enough to share his music with Leo, and Leo has used it multiple times now.
The way it should be. I mean, that's a textbook example of what the South Florida DJ Association was trying to get people to do. Share experiences, and they become better DJs. I'm not exposed to Haitian music or, Indian music. So if there's an Indian DJ that wants me to help him with Latin music or disco music, we have something that we can share with each other. We have knowledge, and that's what it was all about, sharing of the knowledge. And that's why, to a certain point, it's been a successful endeavor there.
Phenomenal. Yeah. So you start DJing when you're a young man and doing the high school dances and the open houses and all those venues, but then all of a sudden the club scene comes about, and the freestyle and all of that starts to pop into. So I noticed that you're wearing one of the very famous clubs here in Miami,
Well,
the Alcazaba. You were there for years, right?
This is the club that I was at 20 years. We
20
opened. It opened in 1988. I was there with another gentleman, and it was initially supposed to be a small venue for hotel guests to go and have a drink.
Just a bar.
And then there was a company that took it over. That their gimmick, they were these guys from London. They were called London Town Associates, and they took it over and they started giving people membership cards and all sorts. And the place blew up. And as we were talking before, you could go there at 5:30 in the afternoon. The place was packed. There was a huge line at the door. By 6:30, the entire dance floor was packed, and the music that we played was very representative of Miami. We played salsa, we played disco, we played freestyle. Everything that we experienced as Latins growing up from the time we got to this country up until that point was played there. There was no bachata, no reggaeton, nothing like that was in the programming at that time. But it was a celebration of us as Latins getting to that moment. Everybody was well dressed. All the women were well dressed. It was a great time. It was 20 years. 1988, 2009, it closed its doors, and I mean, I guess it had to end sometime, and I'm sorry to see it go.
Yeah, me too. It was a wonderful place to go. It was a great place to go at happy hour after work. And you would start there at happy hour, have something to eat, stay, and dance until the wee hours of the night. So
what a place! Yeah,
it's a phenomenal location. There's another club that you were famous at, and it was very famous back in the day in South Beach. It was called Mesanote. Mesanote was a restaurant. Talk about that. What was that like? What was that experience like?
Mesanote was a restaurant that played music out of some CDs in a closet. And we showed up one day, my cousin and I, and we told the guy, we'd like to be DJs. And he goes, what are you going to do for us? We don't need a DJ. Look, we got a packed place. I said, we just wanted to, let's give it a try. We showed up, and it blew up. It blew up. It was a restaurant that you would go to eat, but the music was blaring. And the gimmick was people would dance on the tables and, with their napkins and all sorts of stuff. And we'd play anything from, 1 minute we'd be playing Barry White, the next minute we'd play Elvis Presley, and then we'd play Kiss, and then Frank Sinatra. And it was just that type of feel. People were there to have a good time. They weren't there to say, we want to hear this music. No, they were there just to have a good time. And subsequently, they opened another one in Coconut Grove.
Coconut Grove
which
at
a lot
Mayfair.
of people, exactly, right there in the Mayfair, which a lot of people went to as well. At that time, I was doing Mesanote and a place called Club 609, which was right down the street, which I had previously worked at Bar 609 in South Beach, owned by Louis Puig, who then opened up Space. Mm-hmm. And it was in the old Palo Luigi building. So it was an exciting time. There was clubs everywhere. You had a place to go. There's no excuse. If you wanted to go out on a Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, there was a place to go. Today, you have to kind of look around and say, where am I going to go? And you usually end up at a restaurant.
Yeah, no, it was great. Julian, could you put the timer up? I just want to make sure that I know that I don't run over time, because I have so many phenomenal questions, for Alex, that I could be here all afternoon and all night talking about all of the experiences.
Sure.
But just want to make sure I don't go over our time today. So there's Alcazaba, there is Mesanote, there's and then there's another famous location here in South Florida, the 94th Air Squadron. That was right there next to Miami International Airport, and the place still exists.
It does. 94th Aero Squadron, this was a triangle back in the day. I used to work at Club Mystique, which was at the Airport Hilton. Up the street was 94th Aero Squadron, and right next to it was a place called Ziegfeld's. Mm-hmm. And amazingly that you bring up 94th Aero Squadron, at the end of the month I'll be doing something there with a DJ friend of mine, DJ Richard Quinn. We're going to have, he was the DJ at 1235, and we're doing a night there with 2 rooms, one Latin and one dance room. And it's really something that place has not lost its magic. It's still there, and people like it,
So down the street is Mystique, Airport Hilton, another phenomenal club that was filled with artists. I mean,
Well,
I would walk in there and would see.
Well, I'll tell
Anthony
you.
Raul walking
I'll
around.
tell you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I played at Mystique. I saw Luis Enrique as a young percussionist that would be there waiting for somebody to call him up on stage. I saw Frankie Ruiz there as a guest. Willie Chirino would go there. Hansen and Raul, of course, they were constantly there. Edwin Bonilla, which is a superb percussionist. I mean, I saw so many people there that it was
Multi-Grammy Award winner.
incredible. It was an incredible place for local Latin music. Of course, Carlos Oliva would go there. I also worked with Carlos Oliva down the street at a place called Gabriel's, where he was the house band.
Yep.
You come in there every Friday and Saturday. There's Carlos Oliva or Cara en la Fantasia.
Right.
It was just that type of Miami was very vibrant as far as our music back in the day.
You have touched on a lot of different situations that have happened here in the South Florida area, from back in the day. So now that you have been involved in all of that, do you see that level of entertainment, that level of music ever coming back? Or do you think that we're now at a different stage and now music has moved beyond?
Well, we're looking at it from a point of view with older eyes. We're not looking at it with a young. If you're a young person now, yeah, there's a bunch of places to go. I think what has been lost is that need to dance. People don't go out to dance anymore. They go out to just kind of hang out. We wanted to go out on a Friday, Saturday night dancing.
Sure.
But will it come back? I'm sure if you ask somebody that's young, they'll say, yeah, it's there. We can go here, we can go there. But, you go to the place and everybody's on their phone or with a beer and kind of just looking around. They're not dancing. It's a dance club. The new generation of Cubans are having their reggaeton places, but that's a culture. That's a different culture. We as people that have been in Miami for 60 years, 50 years,
Generations.
It's kind of a shocking thing. We're not into that. So will it come back for us? I mean, we're trying our best. I'm trying our best to create events for people to actually show up and experience that of the past.
I know Maria Cristina Ruiz that you spoke about, creator of Super Q, and I know that she has had a couple of events that you have.
We have
been at, and people gravitating to that, or they
people love it. We've done a couple of things at La Mesa restaurant. We've done different things in different locations, and people like it. But again, age is catching up with us. Mm-hmm. You can't sustain a weekly nightclub anymore because people aren't going to go out every week. People that are 60 years old, 55 years old, all it takes is a little bit of rain, or they just ate a whole plate of carne con papa and they say, you know what, I want to stay home tonight. That's all it takes.
Yeah, the frijoles negros and the
exactly.
The black beans and rice.
It's not like before.
You.
Before you used to go out at 12 o'clock at night to party till 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, 12 o'clock at night, you're at the nightclub going, how long? How much more? You're asking your wife or girlfriend, how much more are we going to stay here? That's the reality.
I remember that's what used to happen at the at Regine's in the Grove. Regine's, they didn't open the doors until midnight.
Exactly.
It was an amazing.
And you'd walk out of there and it was daytime.
Exactly. Yeah, the sun was already coming up over the horizon.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a generational thing, and it's just great memories that if you were lucky enough to experience it. It'll stay and live within your heart forever and ever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about technology. Technology has changed dramatically from the days that you started. Everything is digital now. Your DJ decks, is that the proper terminology? Your decks?
Yeah.
The decks and your laptop computers have
technology evolved. Even though now vinyl is outselling all forms of music, but we started with records, of course, then we went into CDs, and we had to learn how to mix CDs. And then all of a sudden, MP3 files started showing up, and then we had to go on the computer. And then all these different things called controllers started showing up, where it was, basically a workstation for a DJ where now you could sample and loop and do all sorts of things. So a DJ like myself that has been there since the beginning has had to adapt to all these different things. And a lot of times, I'm telling you, from records to CDs, it was a very, very, we were resisting until we couldn't do it anymore. And I don't miss carrying around 10 crates of records that weigh 90 pounds apiece, but I do miss these records. I miss the record. There's nothing like grabbing a record, looking at all the liner notes, taking it out of the sleeve, looking at, and feeling it, putting it down, putting the needle down. Nothing like that. It's just, again, a generational thing, and we miss it. But the music is what we're selling. We're not selling the thing. No one goes behind the DJ booth, a lay person, and says, "Oh, what kind of equipment you got back there?" No, they're going to listen to the music you're playing, and they're going to say, "Wow, that's great music," and that's what you shoot for every night. Yeah.
So back in the day, of course, you would take the vinyl out, you would set it on the table, you cue it up, and you listen to it with your headset.
You listen to the track that you're going to mix into it, so that you could put it on beat for the next time. I mean, back in the day,
and it would segue from one song to the other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was that was something else.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's all done on a digital platform.
That's it. You're moving files around.
Yeah, exactly. How do you see this digital era impacting the future of mixing music and being able to play the kind of music that's going to keep the people in the audience happy, and they're going to stay dancing, and they're going to stay at the venue where you're performing at?
Well, music has changed as far as the DJing has changed, where DJs are now superstars. Back in my time, DJs, we had superstars that we looked up upon, but they weren't making $100,000 a night. Mm-hmm. Today, all you need is a nice-looking guy with blonde hair, and he's going to be making, lots of money. And that's what's going on. The DJ now is the star who sells an image. Music is secondary to them. Back in the day, music was number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Talk about the Ultra Music Festival a little bit. That is just a completely different type of style of music.
It is. It's eye candy, ear candy, and it's meant to basically play on all your senses. You go there, and you're there to listen to music, see lights, and experience the mass. I would assume that it's the equivalent of a Queen concert at Wembley Stadium, where you have masses of people, or Woodstock or something like that, where you're experiencing the music on a gut level, not just being there listening to a guy play music. Yeah. And that's what they're buying into. It's another culture.
And they have these super DJs like Tiesto. That they bring him in from...
Even Tiesto now is considered an old guy.
Yeah, he really...
Yeah, there's some new guys out there.
So now they're bringing new guys up, right?
Yeah, there's always new guys coming out there.
One of the things that impressed me about that style of performance is that a lot of the DJs, and you have done this because you have opened for a lot of big acts. I mean, you've opened for Oscar de Leon, Gilberto Santa Rosa,
exactly. Yeah.
A lot of acts like that.
Yeah. I had my ultras at Bayfront Park, where we played to 10,000 people with Celia Cruz and Gilberto Santa Rosa and Gran Combo, things like that. I mean, Tito Nieves. It was just big, huge concerts back in the day when salsa was king.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the good fortune of being at a concert where you opened for John Cicada.
Oh,
you
that's
were
right.
On stage.
That's right.
And you were spinning music there, and it was at this open park, and there were 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 persons out in the audience.
I remember that night.
And the band had not started playing yet. Dr. Ed Kaya followed you.
Yes.
Played some great saxophone, and then John Cicada came out and did a phenomenal concert. But you opened for that. How did that feel? Being the person that basically starts the show, gets the people.
You're
started?
setting the mood. You're setting the mood for the entire concert. I mean, people are there expecting. We do this thing called Yacht Rock, mm-hmm. which we dress up as captains, and we recently opened up for Ambrosia and Player and bands of that area. What your job is when you open up any concert is you want to set the mood for the people that are there. You don't want to go totally left field and say, well, we're not here to listen to this. Yeah. You're saying, hey, welcome. You guys bought tickets. You paid a lot of money for them. And let me give you an experience, because the band, you know what they're going to give you, but let me give you something extra.
Yeah. Talk about Yacht Rock. That is a very interesting concept.
Yacht Rock started for us we're called Yacht Rock Miami. It's an offshoot of the stuff I do. We had an idea where we basically are playing soft rock music and music of the 70s and 80s to, again, people our age that can't go out and listen to good music anymore. So we dress up with our Hawaiian shirts or captain's hats. I think you have one of the flyers there that that I've sent you that has a yacht rock feel. It's myself, Captain Juan Love, Salty Hank. That's the Navy one. That's sort of a yacht rock, but and we just go out there and have a great time. There it is. Yeah,
Yacht rock right there.
Smooth sounds all day. We have a radio station also that you can listen to on Alexa, Roku, and all sorts of on Rewind 103.9. And it's all the stuff
But you
from
do live
before.
performances with this.
Yeah, we do.
This concept,
And
right?
we open up for the bands of that era that are still performing. And we have a great time. I'm doing one this Friday at Bar Nancy, which is a place that has really opened the doors for us for yacht rock. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, if you go out there, and we do all videos.
Right.
So people that are going to see us at Yacht Rock are treated to seeing the actual videos of the artist of the 70s and 80s, Tom Jones, Player, Ambrosia, Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers, all that kind of stuff. It's really fun. We enjoy it.
Phenomenal music. That that's an era that we will all remember. We're always
Our
gonna
first
cherish.
one was at the Casino Miami.
It was. Yeah. Remember the decor was phenomenal because he had all these
Nautical things.
nautical
Exactly.
decor
Yeah.
on the stage, and it was really.
And like I said, it's just something that you have to keep reinventing yourself and thinking about, well, what else can I do to go out there and where would I want to go? We want to go there. Yeah.
So, what's in store for DJ Alex right now? What do you have coming up? Anything exciting that you can tell us about that maybe people can go and listen to your music and watch you spin music?
June 30th, I'm going to be at Squadron. We're going to be doing a big night there, a 12:35 night. Tonight, I'm at Bar Nancy. On July 7th, I do a once-a-month big disco party at Bar Nancy. That's on 8th Street and 22nd Avenue. And once a month, I go really, really deep disco, not radio disco of the 70s. We do a lot of stuff. But, I'm always looking out there to create new shows and new things catered to people that are in their 50s, 60s. And it gives me great pleasure just to go out there and have somebody say, man, we can't hear this music anywhere else. I'm glad we found you. And that's what it's all about. That's how I get satisfaction from playing music, is to seeing people smile and coming up. Bet you don't have this one and stuff like that. It's a great feeling.
Well, DJ Alex Gutierrez, it's certainly been a pleasure having you on our show today.
Thank you so much.
And you truly are a legend in this community, and I certainly hope that everybody will continue to follow you and go to the venues where you're going to be performing at. I'd like to thank you for all your insight, all the information that you have done here, and I'd like to really thank you for the creation of the South Florida DJ Association. That is a really historical and really phenomenal creation that you have founded, and I hope that you keep that alive. You, DJ Leo Perez, who's another terrific DJ.
That's the man. Yeah.
I hope you guys keep that going and for generations to come. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in today's Miami Beach Show. Next week we have a very special guest that I think you're really going to enjoy, Dr. Ed Calle, saxophone extraordinaire. He's a doctor of music, and he's a professor of music at Miami-Dade College. And I think you're really going to enjoy the show. So please tune in next week, 1 p.m., Dr. Ed Calle. And thank you for tuning in today to